review on the Oxford heated grips that I got. A must-have if you ride in the winter or colder temps. So I installed these actually 2 years ago now almost, and I thought I'd do a quick review on the Oxford heated grips. These are grips that replace your stock grips, so you've got to remove. You can remove and possibly reuse your stock ones if you wanted at some point, but I found that it was just easier to cut them off because they are a pain in the ass to get off in some cases. The heat on them is fantastic. I've tried some of the wraparound variety. I've never tried any of the knockoff grips, but I've tried the wraparound type versus the grip type, and they really these really do a much better job. Got them on sale from at the time, so they were actually a great buy, and I actually had a coupon, so they cost me about 80 bucks 80 bucks Canadian, so fantastic deal. They heat up within about 60 seconds. They reach temperature. You've got 5 different settings. You've got a 30%, 40%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. It comes in this little module, little control that lets you actually cycle through plus and minus the different settings. This model as well, there is a cheaper version. This model, the later models, they actually have a kill switch that will shut down the unit if you turn your bike off. This guy's doing like stunts. Nice, buddy. So they've actually got a sensor of some sort that will tell the unit when the bike's been turned off, the power's out, so that it actually shuts down within 60 seconds or so of hitting the kill switch and or turning the key off, which is a really nice feature, so you don't drain the battery. I've got it wired directly to the battery, but you can alternately wire it to a starter, a relay that's actually turns it on with the bike itself, with the ignition. If you wire it directly to something that comes on when the bike comes on. Not too difficult from what I understand, but having that auto off feature kind of alleviates the real need for that anyway. The heat settings, like I mentioned, I've never really had it at 100% for any real period of time. I've tested it there. I typically keep it anywhere from 40 to 75%. I find it in traffic, again, like if your hand's on the bar the entire time in traffic, slow speed, it actually gets way too hot. You've got to turn it down. It does a great job of warming the palm of your hand, obviously. It doesn't do much for the outside of your hand. But it does sort of interfere if you're wearing a heavier winter glove. In this case, they've got these heated gloves. It does interfere with actually feeling the heat through it, but it does get through eventually. Even on a lower setting, you can feel the heat on the palm quite a bit. But so if you are looking at getting a what's going on over here? If you are getting a thicker glove, an insulated glove, just stick to something that has the insulation on the outside as opposed to inside. Well, bad day for those guys. Installation is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Removal of the existing, easiest way being cutting them off, as I mentioned. On the Honda CBR 650F and the 500R, the throttle tube on the throttle side is actually notched. It has some ridges on it, so it makes it really difficult to get off to begin with, and makes it impossible to get these on because you're not able to slide them on unless you cut those ridges off. I use the Dremel and I trim those off if that's the case, or alternately you could just replace the throttle tube, with something smooth off of a similar make. They come in various sizes, 7/8 and 1-inch bar, so cruisers and or sport bikes, as well as three models. I think it's an adventure, sport, and cruiser or touring. The adventure is pretty similar to the sport. It's just a little bit longer, so it really depends on how much room you have, because we do have some accessories and things that are on it that doesn't let you slide it on too far. Installation, the real thing to remember, I caution you, is just position it so that the wires coming off the grips aren't blocking your clutch lever and or your brake. So you want to make sure, especially with the throttle, you want to make sure that the entire throw of the throttle, you don't have it hitting the lever at all. Glue's on. They give you some glue. It looks like some basic crazy glue, so you can use any crazy glue. It goes on really wet, so I'd caution you again to avoid dripping it. I've seen people that you put a few drops on the bar itself and it will end up dropping on your panels and things. So as long as you've cleaned off the existing bar, it just needs a few drops. I tried not putting it on, specifically the throttle tube side, because it felt rather grippy. But once I turned it on, it actually heated up and gets soft, and that resulted in it starting to slip and slide a little. It just meant that I couldn't really reef on the throttle too hard, or else it would just slide. So bear that in mind. Also, heat up the grips when you're taking them off. The old ones off and the new ones on is important. Makes the job a lot easier. When they're cold, they're super hard. They're like rock hard. So you want to heat them up with a hairdryer and or a heat gun, just to get them softer and a little more pliable, easier to manage. One of the most difficult things on most bikes, especially newer rides, it looks like, is getting the bar ends off. There's typically a small hex nut or hex screw in there, and that's at times Loctited in. So if you don't have the exact size of the bit to get those off, you will strip it. I was forced to drill it out on the clutch side, only because I ended up stripping it, and I ended up just replacing it with Allen key screws instead. I got them at Brafasco. You can probably find them online, as long as you have the measurements. So bear that in mind and keep an eye on that. Make sure that you do tighten them up nice and snug, or else you will lose a bar end. Bar ends make a big difference as far as vibration in the bars typically, so you will notice it if it's not there. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Traffic is brutal. Yeah, this guy is so happy. The grip itself is a little bit thicker than the stock grip, but not by much. It's a little bit tackier as well. It's kind of stickier, a little more sticky, I guess. So it's actually offers a little more grip over stock and a little more dampening of vibration. It doesn't really add enough girth to make a difference when you're gripping the bars. I don't find it fatigues my hands at all. I have had these for about 2 years now, and they are a little bit worn down. They're starting to wear down a bit. And Oxford does sell replacement grips, I guess, for that very reason. Wiring, as I mentioned, is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The wires come off the grips, and I've got them coming down to the triple tree, and then coming back. And then they join together on it with a Y cable, with an adapter. And then I've got that running through the side fairing and directly to the battery. So again, you have options with that. You can have an off switch on it, you can have a manual switch, but this control box pretty much does what it needs to. I found that I rode in sub-zero temperatures with them. They are helpful. If you don't have any sort of wind protection for your hands, or like let's say the hand guards that come on some bikes, then it's really not as helpful as you'd like it to be. Your fingers do start to get sore, start to ache a little bit, which is really makes it, riding in the winter pretty miserable. But they do make a big difference, especially on the cooler spring and fall nights. We've got a lot of sort of transitional seasons where temperatures dip overnight. Still nice days, still riding weather, but it does make a big difference having sort of that just there all the time. And because it's so unobtrusive, it really, there's like, it's so hard to notice generally. I don't really see the point taking them off. But a great product. They do have a 1-year warranty, I believe, on them. I'll put links down below where I picked them up from. If you have any questions or comments or concerns about them, just give me a message in the comment below as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Check them out if you do some cold weather riding. It will come in handy. Definitely a great investment. And we'll talk to you soon. Peace. Ride safe.